Ma'am, shall we start, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. I'm
No.
ready.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to session 9 of day 4. I'm Shilpa, Assistant Professor of GRIT. ECE would like to welcome you all for 1 week FDP on artificial intelligence impacts on telemedicine. Now I would like to request Dr. R. Aarti for the topic. For the topic Deep Learning Techniques on Telemedicine. On this occasion, I would like to have a short introduction about her profile. Dr. Aarti obtained her PhD in Information Communication in 2014. She did her MTech from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore in 2001. She had her MBA from Madurai Kamraj University in 1997. She obtained her BE from Manimalai College of Technology for Women in Tanjavur in 1994. She has 22 years and 6 months of teaching experience, including 4 years of research experience. She has published more than 30 papers, both in international journals and conferences, and 3 international innovation patents are also added to her credit. She is a reviewer for various international journals and acted as a program committee member and session chair for many international conferences. She has acted as a resource person and delivered various guest lectures for many engineering institutions and acted as a keynote speaker for various conferences. 5 research scholars are pursuing research under Dr. Aarti. So Dr. Aarti felicitated with Academic Excellence Award in 2020 as a Best Professor in ECE by Association of Management Professionals AMP in Hyderabad 2020. She also received an award of appreciation for academic excellence in 2007. She also received 8 grams gold coin from management for dedication and superior performance in 2007. Currently, Dr. Aarti is working as professor in Department of ECE, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram campus, Chennai. Her area of interest includes wireless communications, medical imaging, wireless sensor networks, green computing, mobile computing, network security, IoT, and artificial intelligence. Welcome you, ma'am. Ma'am, you are mute.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me share my screen.
Yes, ma'am. I have given you as co-host.
Okay. Is my screen visible, ma'am?
Oh, blank screen is.
No, you have shared a whiteboard. You have to share this.
Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Whiteboard is visible.
Can you give the option for sharing the screen?
Ma'am, already I've given, ma'am. You are the co-host now. Your board is visible, ma'am. But
yeah, I have shared my. Yeah. Yes. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, good morning, one and all. Thank you, ma'am, for giving me a brief note about my profile.
Thank you.
So, today's session starts with deep learning in telemedicine. Okay. So, the agenda for discussion today is, let us see some overview about this artificial intelligence, its basics and definitions, prolonged to deep learning, then deep learning classification. Then we'll see about deep learning based telemedicines, few case studies, 2 to 3 case studies I'll discuss. Then we'll see what are the take home points for a research scholar and other faculty members. So to start with the overview of artificial intelligence is a subset of a data science or a big data. Whatever may be the data set if you have, then artificial intelligence becomes easy with the set of available data. Earlier days, we called that as a statistical data, but recently they call it as a data science or a big data, which is nothing but a background of statistics. Okay, once if you are very good in statistical properties or statistical sciences, then artificial intelligence becomes very easy for you. Again, artificial intelligence gave birth to machine learning. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. So our area of discussion today is about deep learning. So what is this deep learning is about? So deep learning is a subset of all the three combined together with the set of big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So this is how deep learning gave its birth, starting from the data set or a big data. So to look into the overview of artificial intelligence from burst to boom, it started its emergence of artificial intelligence in the early 1950s, which excited everyone about the learning of machines, okay, learning of the intelligence, how other than human being, how the other object like to learn the intelligence present in the human being. Okay, so gradually they have prolonged their research, and during 1980s they brought this concept of machine learning. So during 1980s, the machine learning began to flourish. So it has extended its research and it gave birth to deep learning during the year 2010s. Okay, so this deep learning, it has got a thorough breakthrough of your artificial intelligence technique, right? So we'll see the brief history of artificial intelligence. So during 1950, Alan Turing, he has proposed a test for computer intelligence. So he has tried with the text-based conversion, which is being indistinguishable from humans. Okay, so this Turing test, we call it as proposed by this computer intelligence during 1950s. Then 1968, a space odyssey has been launched during 1968. Okay, so after that, 1956, artificial intelligence have been coined by the Dartford University in New Hampshire. Then the term got stuck into everyone's mind about the artificial intelligence, AI. Everyone started talking about artificial intelligence. Then they went on to this 2001 Space Odyssey. Then in 1970s, defense agencies, they have made use of this artificial intelligence about the US government organization to reduce the investment. They have proposed this artificial intelligence during 1970s. So upon growing, then 1984, we all know this Terminator movie acted by Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has given a blockbuster about this artificial intelligence combined with the movie shooting, right? So after that, during 1997, Deep Blue, by name of IBM Computer, it has beaten the world chess player Kasparov. Okay. During 2011, again this IBM has been won in the quiz competition, popular quiz show. So that again we call that as IBM Artson. Again in the same year 2011, Siri has been introduced. That is by the Apple. All iPhone has got a software named as Siri, where it can able to interact with the human being. So machine started speaking through the Siri app. Okay. So during 2012, we came across this driverless cars. Okay. It has found a way on California roads where this artificial intelligence played a major role. Then in 2016, again this DeepMind, it has bet this champion Go player with the help of the holy grails of artificial intelligence. So from 2016 onwards, the boom of artificial intelligence came into existence, and it has entered every individual researcher's mind and every people, scientist, organization, whatnot. Everyone started talking about artificial intelligence. So we'll see what could be the difference between your artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning, right? So artificial intelligence, it was originated, as I said, during 1950s, machine learning in 1960s, and deep learning in 1970s. So artificial intelligence, it has simulated intelligence in machines, okay? But whereas machine learning has got the practice of getting the machines to make decisions without being programmed. No need of programming, but the machine can able to make a decision without getting information from others. Okay, it acted independently. So deep learning, it's a process of using artificial neural network to solve complex problems. Okay, so AI is a subset of data science. Machine learning is a subset of AI in data science, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science, as I said earlier. So this artificial intelligence, it aimed to build machines which are capable of thinking like humans. Okay, human intelligence were built on machines. So machines started thinking about humans by the term of artificial intelligence. Okay, but whereas in machine learning, it aimed to make machines learn through data so that they can solve problems. So you could able to feed the data, you call that as a data set. Based on the data set available, the machines will compare the problems and what decision has to be taken. Those things are being taken by the machines. Okay. So, but whereas your deep learning, it is aimed to build the neural networks that automatically discover the patterns for feature detection. So, deep learning is entirely about a pattern recognition or a image segmentation. Okay. So, this is how artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning has been differentiated. So, to again start with a few definitions, as I said, artificial intelligence, it has got the capability of a machine to imitate the intelligent human behavior. Okay, to imitate the intelligent human behavior. Learning is a process by which a system inputs its performance from experience. Okay, what is then machine learning is about? So machine learning, it is a field of study that gives the computer the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. So with the help of a data available, the machine can able to solve the problem and give you the decision. So what is this deep learning network is about? So they are distinguished from the more commonplace. We call that a single hidden layer neural network. By their depth means you can able to go in deep or in depth. Okay, you can construct as many number of hidden layers so that you can find a solution by going to the deep or depth of the problem, so that you can obtain the root cause for the problem, so that you could able to find a proper solution. That is what is deep learning network is about. So how this machine learning are being classified? Generally, they classify this machine learning as supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised, and reinforcement. Okay, so the supervised, again, they're classifying into three terms, namely regression, classification, and deep learning. So what is this regression is about? So the regression, normally, wherever I take this deep learning session, everyone will have a will post a question about the difference between the regression and classification. Okay, so regression means it is a statistical measurement that attempts to determine the strength of relationship between one dependent variable. It will take one dependent variable and it will find the relationship between that one dependent variable to a series of other changing variables, to the series of other changing variables. So that process, we call that as a regression. Means it is a statistical measurement that attempts to determine the strength of the relationship between one dependent variable and a series of other changing variables. Okay, so they classify this regression into a linear regression and polynomial regression. So this concept of linear and polynomial, we might have learned in our basic maths in our school days or college days. Okay, so the next classification, next parameter under your supervised learning is classification. So what is this classification? So regression, we learned that it is a relationship between one dependent variable and a series of other changing variables. Is it not? So what is this classification is about? So this classification is about a problem of identifying to which set of categories a new observation belongs. Okay, to which set of categories a new observation belongs on the basis of training set of data containing the observation. So have a clear idea about classification. So classification means it is a problem of identifying to which set of categories a new observation belong. To which set of category a new observation belong on the basis of training set of data containing the observations. That is what we call it as a classification. So this classification, again, they classify it into a logistic regression, support vector machine, artificial neural networks, and decision trees, right? So the third part under a supervised learning is a deep learning network. So this deep learning is again classified into CNN and RNN. CNN is convolutional neural network and RNN is recurrent neural network. So our aim on this telemedicine topic is about deep learning in telemedicine. Means if you know the concept of convolutional neural network, then the entire deep learning becomes very easy for you, provided with the enough data storage in cloud so that you can handle many number of data sets, classifications, so that you can able to achieve whatever you want in deep learning, right? So the second classification under machine learning is unsupervised machine learning. So unsupervised means you don't require any supervision for the algorithm, right? So they are classifying that into clustering, dimensionality reduction, and anomaly detection. So clustering, again, they say it as a k-means clustering, and dimensionality reduction, they call it as PCA. PCA means principal component analysis. Okay. Then third classification is semi-supervised. So in semi-supervised, they say it as a self-training or low-density separation models. And fourth one is reinforcement learning. That reinforcement can be classified into a dynamic programming or a Monte Carlo methods. Okay, so these are the classifications of machine learning. Once if you are thorough with these classifications, under which category, what are the type it belongs, then it is easy for you to narrow down your research or narrow down your problem so that your research becomes very easy. So in continuation with this comparison of learning techniques, as I said, it is classified into supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. So we will see the definitions, then what could be the type of problem it can have, and what is the type of data, training, and approach, and its popular algorithms, right? So the definition wise, if you see for supervised, the machine learns by using labeled data, okay? For unsupervised, the definition is the machine is trained on unlabeled data without any guidance. Okay, no need of any guidance or supervision required for unsupervised. Coming to this reinforcement, an agent interacts with its environment by producing actions and discovers the errors or the rewards so that it will take it as a feedback to the environment to the so that the agent can able to come to a conclusion. Okay, that is what is reinforcement is. The best example for reinforcement is traffic system. Okay, so we have a traffic system, a traffic light, so that 4 ways the vehicle can able to move depending upon the environment and the action, so that it can able to get a reward, so that the traffic light, depending upon the environment, it will be keep on changing its stop and go position, so that the environment can learn from its error or the rewards given as a feedback to the environment so that the agent will react depending upon the density of traffic. That is what is reinforcement is about. Okay. So next, coming to the type of problems, your supervised will be having a type of a regression problem or a classification problem, right? So unsupervised means it can have a association problem or a clustering problem. So reinforcement is rewarded based. Okay. So according to the situation, the agent has to decide based upon the reward what is getting as a feedback so that the system can come to a conclusion. So coming to the third type of data, the supervised learning can have a labeled data, unsupervised learning can have unlabeled data, and reinforcement can have no predefined data. That is true actually. Reinforcement doesn't have any predefined data. Depending upon the density or the cluster available in the environment, the agent has to decide, okay, whatever is present at that time, okay, at that second in the environment, depending upon that available set of data only, it can able to find a reward or a solution to the problem. That is what they call it as a no predefined data. Next, coming to the training part, Training is very essential in your learning algorithms. So training part for supervision, you need an external supervision. Okay, one person has to monitor how the training is undergoing. Okay, in case of unsupervised, there is no need of any supervision. So reinforcement also, no supervision is needed. Okay, it can be programmed automatically depending upon the density of the cluster or the volume available. Okay. Next type is approach. What could be the type of approach for can be done for this type of learning techniques? For supervision, a map labeled input to the known output can be a best approach. Okay. In case of unsupervised, we can understand the pattern and discover the output. That is pattern recognition. Next, reinforcement. We can follow trial and error method depending upon the traffic density or the volume available. Okay. So these are the types of approaches, either mapping the labeled data with respect to input and output, or you can understand the pattern, or you can follow the trial and error method. Next is popular algorithm. So this popular algorithms is very, very important for your learning techniques. So under supervised, you have linear regression, logistic regression, support vector machine, k nearest neighbor, etc. Okay. Under unsupervised, you have k means clustering or c means clustering. Okay. Reinforcement means Q learning or SARSA. Some and few more algorithms are available for your reinforcement. Okay. So as far as our discussion is concerned today, we are into deep learning. So mostly we'll touch upon the supervised learning. Okay. So since I have quoted few popular algorithms about this linear regression, logistic regression, we will see the pros and cons of these popular algorithms available. Okay. So the machine learning algorithm, first one is k nearest neighbor. The problem type can be of classification or regression. The advantages of using this k nearest neighbor is very easy to implement, and it is very flexible to choose the distance functions. Okay. The shortcomings is it computationally expensive due to distance calculation of each training data sample to classify a new sample. Okay. And also the shortcoming is memory intensive to store all the training data set. Okay. So this is about the advantages and shortcomings of your k nearest neighbor. So the next type of learning algorithm can be a decision theory algorithm. Okay. So this decision theory algorithm, the problem type can be of either a classification or a regression. The advantage is very simple to understand and to take decisions. It has got the ability of selecting the most discriminatory features and data classification without much calculation, and it could able to handle both the continuous as well as the discrete data. Okay. The shortcoming of this decision theory algorithm is its instability. Even a small change in the training data set will result in a large changes in your decision theory model. And the overfitting problem. We will discuss about overfitting in the next coming slides. Okay. So this overfitting is nothing but a noise caused by the overfitting model for the decision theory. Okay. So third type of machine learning algorithm can be of random forest. So the problem type can be of classification or regression. The advantage is it can work well for large training data set, as the name indicates, random forest. Okay. And it has got a reduced instability because it is relative to the decision theory. So stability is not that much to the expected level. And it could able to mitigate the overfitting of the decision theory model. Okay. So these are the advantages of your random forest. Looking into the shortcomings of random forest, it has got low training speed and it is very less effective to train imbalanced data set. Okay, these are the shortcomings of your random forest. So next type is neural network. This is where our area of focus is today. Okay. So the next type of machine learning algorithm can be of neural network. So this neural network problem type can be of a classification or regression. So the advantage is once if you train the neural network, prediction becomes very faster and you could able to achieve approximate an arbitrary function, and it works well on a high dimensional training data set. Okay. So the shortcomings are computationally expensive due to the requirement for tuning a large number of parameters. That is very, very true. Neural network occupies more data. Okay, so the computational efficiency is there. Next, it is very hard for humans to interpret the trained neural network model. And there is a little theory to guide the researchers to set the optimal neural network structure. That is, the researchers, based on their problem, they could not able to set the number of layers and nodes needed for their researcher. Okay, because their problem has to be properly defined, and they have to categorize the problem whether it comes under which type of classification of machine learning algorithms. Then only they can able to choose the neural network structure. Okay, so choosing this neural network structure also, they should see the number of layers and nodes, because you may be coming across a dropout or a overfitting or an underfitting, or choosing the learning rate may be a different. That becomes a constraint. It occupies more data space in the cloud storage. So there are so many shortcomings in choosing the number of layers and nodes coming under the neural network. So we will discuss about all these things in the next coming. Okay, our focus is going to be only on deep learning. Okay, so the next type of machine learning algorithm is support vector machine. So again, the problem type can be of a classification or regression. So the advantage is it can handle high dimensional data set. It can work both well for both a linear and non-linear separable data set. And the shortcomings is it is very hard to train the large data set, because the training is computationally expensive, because you have to choose the learning rate such that the training becomes faster. Okay, the training the large data set will take computational cost much more. Okay, it's higher. So, and the shortcoming is for support vector machine is less effective on noisier data set due to overfitting issues. Okay, so next type of machine learning algorithm is Bayes theory. Bayes theory is meant only for classification. So the advantages, it is very easy and simple to understand as well as to implement. It is very easy to train the model. Even a small training data set can be trained well to achieve your expected outcome. And the shortcoming is its independence on assumption. That is not always the case in your real world. So it is very hard to handle the continuous data. Okay, so this is about the Bayes theory. Next type of machine learning algorithm is hidden Markov model. Okay, hidden Markov model comes under the classification type. The advantage is it has got a strong statistical foundation. It works well in environments where system states are partially visible, so that wherever hidden layers are present, this method can go to the deep rooted level to find the system state. Okay. Next, the shortcomings are it is very hard to train large data set, because the training is computationally expensive, and its instability. Even a small change in any of the parameter of hidden Markov model will affect the performance of HMO more dramatically. Okay, so you will be having some observation matrix probability, so that any change in that observation and learning will drastically change the hidden Markov model. Okay, so the next type of machine learning algorithm is K-means. So it comes under the problem type of clustering, very simple to implement, easy to interpret the results. Okay, and the result or shortcoming is it's very sensitive to initial point and outliers, and its computation cost is linear with the number of training data. Okay, the last type of machine learning algorithm is self-organizing maps. So this SOM also comes under clustering. As usual, it's very easy to understand. It's capable of handling high dimensional data set, and shortcoming is computationally expensive, especially for large maps with a lot of training data. Okay, so we have seen about this classification of supervised, and there I have told about the popular algorithms. So the popular algorithms I have taken, and I have defined each type of algorithm comes under which type of problem, what is its advantage and shortcomings. Okay, so in continuation with this, we'll see about the semi-supervised learning. So the semi-supervised learning problem type can be of a classification, regression, or clustering. It can be used for both labeled and unlabeled. And shortcoming is it can rely on assumptions such as manifold, cluster, and smoothness assumptions. So next one is reinforcement learning. It's based on decision making. So it works well with prior knowledge of exact mathematical model of the environment. Once trained, your reinforcement learning decision becomes very faster, but it has got a low convergence rate to the optimal behavior policy. It is very hard to solve problems with high dimensional state space and action space. And the last type of machine learning classification is deep reinforcement learning. It has got a problem type of decision making. It can handle as well as high dimensional problems. It can rely on powerful approximation and representation. Once trained, decision becomes very faster, but it requires a lot of computational resources to train the model. Okay. So in continuation with this, um, we were continuously discussing about the machine learning algorithms and training the data set, is it not? So what could be the cause for training the data set? How you are going to train the available data with you? Okay. So for that, you should know about the role of optimizers. So what is the optimizer function, optimization function, or the optimizer? In what way this optimizer is going to help you to train the neural network in your deep learning? Okay. So the main objective of this neural network is to reduce the differentiation between the predicted output and actual output, predicted output and actual output. Okay. So the optimizers are used to update the weights accordingly to achieve the objective. So the goal of this algorithm is to find the optimal value with the right weight. Okay. If you have to choose a proper weights so that you can able to achieve the optimization or the convergence very easily. So what could be the type of training algorithms available, or the role of optimizer available to train the algorithm? Okay. So with respect to deep learning, the available training algorithm or the set of optimizers are a gradient descendant or stochastic gradient descendant, Nesterov accelerated gradient, ADA-grad, ADA delta or RMS prop, ADAM, momentum, then Leeuwenberg-Marquardt algorithm, and back propagation through time. Okay, so these are the different type of optimizers are available to train your algorithm. Okay, so I have touched upon the classification of machine learning. Then I have spoke about the type of machine learning algorithms available along with its shortcomings. So if the type of learning algorithms are available, how we are going to achieve our output with the support of optimizers. Okay, that is what we have seen. So we will see about this training algorithm or the optimizer in detail. So first one is stochastic gradient algorithm. So what is this gradient descendant or gradient GD or SGD means? Okay. So normally it is an iterative algorithm. Okay. You can initialize the step and you can able to continue the cycle until you reach the optimized value or until you reach the convergence. Okay. So this gradient descendant, we call that as an iterative algorithm that starts from a random point on a function and travels down its slope in steps until it reaches the lowest point of that function. So we have to make a note that lowest point. Lowest point means deep rooted to the problem. Okay, you're starting in the somewhere in a random point of a function and you're traveling towards the slope to reach the lowest part. Okay, so what you're doing here is, in case of gradient descendant, you are going to find the slope of that objective function and you're going to pick up a random initial value. Then you're going to update the gradient and you're going to calculate the number of step sizes for each feature. Then you're going to calculate the new parameter with the help of old parameter minus the step size. And you're going to continuously repeat this until your gradient value becomes 0. You're starting with some random value. That random value has to reach to the almost 0 position. That is the lowest point for that particular function. So this is the role of a SGD optimizer. Okay. So this is how a convergence takes place with respect to SGD. So SGD, if you learn SGD, then rest of the optimizer becomes very easy. Next type is momentum. So the momentum is a method which helps the accelerate the gradient vectors in the right direction. That leads to faster convergence. You can see how the momentum update is taking place here. Okay, with respect to update and Nesterov momentum update. Okay, we are starting with a gradient step here. So actual position is here. So you are going step by step till you reach your actual position. Okay, till you reach your convergence rate. Okay, this is what is momentum is about. So next type is ADAGRAD. The ADAGRAD means adaptive gradient algorithm. So as the name indicates adaptive, it can able to, this idea can be used for different learning rates for each parameter on iteration. So what could be the learning rate you are going to choose for the type of parameter is very, very important. So the reason behind this different learning rate is the learning rate can be sparse feature parameter that needs higher comparison value to the denser feature value. So only you are choosing a different learning parameter for a different learning rate for each parameter. It may start from sparse to the denser location. Okay. So next type is RMS prop. So RMS prop is similar to the gradient descendant with momentum. Okay. So here RMS prop, it restricts the oscillations. It increases our learning rate. And the difference between this RMS prop and gradient descendant is how the gradients are being calculated. Okay. So how the gradients are calculated in the RMS prop, you're taking you're going to increase the learning rate and you're going to achieve larger steps in horizontal direction that could able to converge faster. Okay, instead of a vertical rise, you're going in the horizontal movement. Okay, so that is what is the RMS prop is about. So next is ADAM. ADAM means adaptive moment optimizer. So it is a very popular algorithm where it can go into the field of deep learning so that it could able to achieve very good results very faster also. So ADAM is meant for a deep learning. Okay. So I will quote you with simulation parameter in the next coming case studies where this ADAM is being used for your deep learning in telemedicine to achieve the results very faster. Okay. Next, your empirical results that determine the ADAM work well in practice. And this ADAM algorithm has got an update. It has to update the weights iterative based in the training data. Okay, this is about ADAM. Okay, so we have seen different types of optimizers. So what was its strength and weakness? That is very, very important. So you have identified a problem. Okay, you have identified a problem. You have chosen the machine learning algorithm, what type of problem it is, and what is the algorithm that has to be used for your research, for your problem, and how you are going to identify the type of optimizer that has to be trained to the machine learning algorithm. So if you know the strength and weakness of each optimizer, you can play with this optimizer for you to get the results very faster. Okay. So as the name indicates, stochastic gradient descendant SGD, the strength is it has got an excellent generalization. Even after sufficient training also, it can converge. Okay. But the weakness is it is prone to saddle points or local optimum because it is like a downhill problem. Stochastic gradient descendant is. It may prone to saddle point means it may come to the minimal location, but after reaching that minimal point, it will learn that still there is one more minimal location is being present over there, so that the convergence rate becomes very slow here, and it is very sensitive to hyperparameter. Next is momentum. So this momentum, it can accelerate in the direction at a steady state, and it's not prone to any falling into local optimum. Okay, it will not get cheated on. Okay, as SGD, it will get cheated on after reaching some optimal point. It will learn that one more optimality is being present over there. Okay, that is SGD. But whereas here, momentum will not get prone to the falling into a local optimum, but it is very sensitive to the hyperparameter and the value of learning rate. Choosing a learning rate is very, very important for your deep learning techniques. So next is ADAGRAD. ADAGRAD is adaptive gradient. So it can able to adjust the learning parameter adaptively, and convergence rate is very faster for sparse features. Okay, but the shortcomings or the weaknesses, it has got worse generalization and are likely to converge sharp to the minimal point. Okay, so it will vanish because of the aggressive scaling. That is the weakness of your ADA. So next is RMS prop. The strength of your RMS prop is it can adjust the learning adaptively, but less aggressive than ADA. Convergence rate is important, so it is faster and it has got a built-in momentum, right? But what is its weakness? Weakness is worse generalization and likely to converge to sharp to minimum. You may be having so many minimal edges, okay? So it may likely to get converged at any part of the minimal location. So that is the weakness of your RMS prop, because RMS prop will learn horizontal direction. Is it not so? So the last type of optimizer is ADAM. Okay, so ADAM, it automatically decays the learning rate. It will keep on declining the learning rate. So convergence is faster and it combines the advantages of momentum, ADA-grad and RMS prop. Okay, all the advantages comes under ADAM. So only all the image based segmentation, they choose this ADAM as an optimizer because it has got the all advantages of your momentum, ADA-grad and RMS prop. No need to go and sit and work on individual optimizer. Once if you choose ADAM, it will give the result of rest of the three. Okay. So these are the strength and weakness of some popular optimizers. So having learned about the machine learning classifications, algorithms present over there, and the type of optimizer for training that algorithm, next we'll step into the neural network, okay, for our deep learning. So the neural network timeline, if you see, during 1940s, they found an electronic brain, okay, exactly 1943, which has got an adjustable weights, but the weights are not learned. Okay, it has got an adjustable weight, but there was no learning for the weights. So during 1950 to 60, they found this perceptron, okay, where your weights are being given over there, and it could able to achieve its perceptions. Okay, during 1957 exactly. So during 1960, they came out with ADALM. So 1960 to 1970, they called that age as a golden age for artificial intelligence. So during 1969, they have come across the XR problem. So from 1970 to 1986 or 90, they call it as a dark age for artificial intelligence. Okay. So later during 1986, they found this multi-layered perceptron, which has got this back propagation. Forward, it can learn, again backward also it can propagate, find the error, again correct it, again move forward. Okay, that is what is the advantage of your multi-layered perceptron. So exactly 1989, they came with the convolutional neural network. We'll see it in detail. Then 1995, they gave us support vector machine. During 97, they gave us LSTM. What is this LSTM? LSTM is long short-term memory. Okay. Then 2006, they have given us a concept named as deep neural network. So this is the place where we started our deep learning techniques with the help of a pre-training category. So these are the persons who were working on these concepts. So this is the timeline of your neural network actually, right? So next is, as I said, 1940s neural networks are proposed, 1960s deep neural, then 1989 they started recognizing the digits with the help of LeNet, okay. And 90s Intel came into picture. They started working on the hardware for your shallow neural networks. And 2011 there was a breakthrough for your deep neural network based speech recognition. Microsoft has taken the breakthrough in 2011. During 12, deep neural network for vision, okay, they started using the AlexNet, where it could able to give you the vision, start supplanting your handcrafted approaches. So 2000 plus onwards, the DNN started growing with an accelerator research with the help of a new flow on DIAN. Okay, so these are the timeline of your deep neural network. So few definitions about deep learning. This is the place where we are entering to our field of about deep learning. Okay. So today's discussion is about deep learning. So deep learning, it is a new initialization strategy. It uses a series of single layer network. Okay. So this single layer network do not suffer from vanishing or exploding gradients. So only I've given a brief intro about the machine learning algorithms and the algorithms which uses the type of optimizers to train that algorithm. So there we have learned about the gradients, is it not? Various types of optimizers available with the different gradients, is it not? So here your deep learning does not suffer from vanishing or exploding gradients. It has got the ability to find the initial parameter for a deep machine learning program. Okay. So next is about neural network. So what is this neural network is about? So this gives you massively parallel interconnected network of simple processing elements that are intended to interact with objects to the real world, same as a biological system. So these basic definitions we are aware of. Okay. Next is deep neural network. So this is modeled on multi-stage recognition ability of an object. Okay. So having learned about the definition of deep learning, neural networks and deep neural network, we will see how a mathematical model of a new Can anyone confirm you can hear my voice?
Yes, ma'am. Able to hear.
Sorry for the trouble. My Wi-Fi got disconnected.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
connecting again. Yeah. Is it visible
ma'am.
now?
Network bandwidth is
Yes, ma'am.
screen sharing has to be done.
Okay, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, ma'am.
Now okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, thank you. So having seen about the classification of machine learning algorithm, how to implement its advantage, disadvantages, I have told the role of optimizers that support the machine learning algorithms for training. Okay. After that, we had a brief intro about the neural network, its history and its timeline. So for deep learning, you need to learn about the mathematical model of a neuron. Okay. So how the mathematical model is being coined. Okay. So the neural networks, it will define the function of inputs. Okay. That input, we call it as a hidden by the neurons. So X naught is the input along with the weight W. We call that as a synapse. You give that input to the cell body, which has got a function with a B. So that entire function will be activated with the activation function, so that your output of your axion will be having a function of your summation of inputs along with the weights plus B. Okay, this is how they define the mathematical model of a neuron in a neural network. The input X naught along with the weight, you're giving it to the cell body of B, you're combining it together to form a function. That function has to be activated with the help of a activation function. So here also we have this three classification of activation function. Sigmoid function we have, tanh function we have, and ReLU function we have. Okay, we'll see it in the next coming slides. So these functions of the input along with the cell body with the help of, with the support of activation function, we get an output in the neural network. Okay, this is how a simple mathematical neural network is being defined. Okay, so next is types of neural networks. So how they are classifying the types? One, they call it as deep convolutional neural network. Okay, the role of deep DCNN, in short, they call it as DCNN. So DCNN means image. It's meant for recognizing the image or object or an speech. Okay. Next type is autoencoder. So the role of this autoencoder is to extract the feature, or it can be used for unsupervised learning or pattern recognition. And third type of DNN is deep belief network, that is image recognition and classification. Fourth one is deep convolutional inverse graphic network. Okay, so the role of this inverse graphic network is, if you give one input image, it will generate new images of the same object with variations in pose and lighting. That is the role of your inverse graphics. So this option, you can see it in your camera function. Okay, adjusting the pose and lighting, everything, you can see it in the mobile handset camera option is there. No, there you can, after taking the picture, you can able to adjust it. So the principle behind that adjustment is belongs to this deep convolutional inverse graphics networks. So next is deep residual network, that is also for image recognition. Recurrent neural network is for time series analysis and speech recognition. Then recursive neural tensor network is for text analysis. Okay, having seen the different types of deep neural networks available over here, everywhere you can see that image plays a major role for any type of classification of DNN. So image occupies 75% of our neural network. Okay, remaining 25 is maybe for a text or an audio or a speech. Okay, so we will see the deep neural network architecture. So they classify this deep neural network architecture into 4 types, namely convolutional neural networks, recurrent neural network, and the long short-term memory. Third one is encoder-decoder model or autoencoder model. Fourth one is generative adversarial network. Okay, I'll zoom it and show you what actually your convolutional neural network contains. The convolutional neural network contains an input image. It is being convolved. It undergoes pooling, convolution, pooling, then goes to the fully connected. One softmax is missing over here. After softmax, it will be fully connected layer so that you obtain an output. Okay, this is the basic concept of your convolutional neural network, right? So next, if you see this recurrent neural network, you can see that X is the input, H along with that feedback, weight is being calculated, and you're taking the output. Okay, this is what is the function of your role of your recurrent neural network. Okay, next is long short-term memory. So what is this long short-term memory actually contains? As I said, X is the input. Okay, H is the convoluted function along with F. So you'll be giving some activation function. So as I said, activation function tan H you are giving so that you could be able to obtain your output. Okay, this is what is your long short-term memory. Next is autoencoder model. What actually your autoencoder model contains? So autoencoder model contains an input image you are giving to the encoder. You are representing it with the latent representation. Then you are decoding it so that your output map will look like this. Okay. So next is fourth type of DNN architecture is generative adversarial network architecture. So you could able to take a d-dimensional noise vector, giving it to the generator network. You are obtaining the fake images from the generator network. You are giving it to the discriminator network where it actually has the real images. So your real image is being compared with your fake image so that you get your predicted label. Okay. So this is what is your generative adversarial network is about. So these are the 4 different type of neural network architectures available. Okay. So if you know here convolutional neural network process properly, then rest of the architectures becomes very easy for you to work on. Okay, so we'll see in detail about CNN architecture. So CNN architecture, you are taking an input, you are giving it to the first convolution. After convolution, it undergoes a max pooling. This layer is being repeated until you get a flattened work. Okay, that is softmax. From there, you are taking the fully connected function. So this fully connected network will have a ReLU activation function, so that you will be obtaining with the dropout, you will be able to obtain your output more deeper. Okay, so this is what is your convolutional architecture is about. So to go in detail about CNN architecture, actually it contains 7 layers. So if you do a CNN architecture, you have to undergo these 7 layers to travel to the deep rooted solution. Okay, so first is the input layer, that is your input image. Next is your convolutional layer. Okay, so this convolutional layer actually it contains a set of important filters and a receptive field. Okay, so this process takes place with the help of a filters and receptive field. So each filter will be convolved with respect to height and width of the image and a dot product between the input data and the filter, so that activation map is being produced for that particular filter. Okay, so the hyperparameters what you are concluding in convolutional layer are the depth, stride, and zero padding. Okay, these are the 3 hyperparameters which control your convolutional layer. So third type of layer is your pooling layer. So what is the role of pooling here? So as I said, if you take a single depth slice which contains the pixel count, what you are doing in pooling layer is they are dividing it into 4 quadrants. For each quadrant, what is the maximum pixel level available will be taken to the next level. Okay, this is what pooling is. Pooling of pixels are available. Out of that, we are dividing it into quadrants. For each quadrant, wherever the maximum pixel level values are, that you are shifting it to the next one. Okay, so that you could be able to obtain your next set of pooling rate. Okay, so next subsections can be calculated with the help of the pixels of images available. Okay, so next is the role of ReLU layer. So what ReLU layer? So ReLU layer, it is an expansion of rectified linear unit layer. Okay, so this is related. Mr. Sanjay Patel, can you mute yourself?
Yes, Sanjay sir, please. Yes, ma'am, I have muted him.
Okay, thank you. So the role of your ReLU layer is to find the concept of non-saturated activation function. Okay, so what is the role of this ReLU layer? It will eliminate the unnecessary values and it will set them to 0 in the activation map. Unnecessary values needed for your image filtering. Okay, next is your fully connected layer. So after fully connected layer, we'll be having a loss layer. So this loss layer will and increase the efficiency of the output. Okay, and the last one is softmax. Softmax is a single class, mutually exclusive classes. Okay, your deep-rooted learning will not stop in fully connected layer. After fully connected layer, you should go and look for any losses incurred in your image, or you have to look in for the softmax, which has got a single class of mutually exclusively classes. Okay, after that only your convolutional neural network will give you the output. Okay, so as I said, some activation function in the neural network architecture, the normally used activation function. Okay, the normally used activation function, sigmoid function, tanh function, and ReLU function. For image-based general image-based classification, we will be touching upon rectified linear unit. Why? Because it will be having the zeroth level as well as the maximum level. It will reach the maximum level. Okay. You can see how the sigmoid function looks like, how a tanh function will look like, and how a ReLU function will look like. This is the how where activation functions are being used. So next important thing what you have to look in for deep learning architecture is how to choose the weight, okay, in the neuron, how to choose the weight or how we are going to use the weight, okay. So how often you have to update your weighted parameter, okay. So when you have to update after a full sweep through the training data, that is after the full sweep through the training data with the help of any type of optimizers, okay. Next, how much to update? So what you have to do is you have to fix a learning rate, you have to adapt that learning rate, and you have to add momentum to that learning rate so that your usage of weight derivatives becomes helpful. So how we are going to monitor the loss during the training? So how we are going to monitor the loss? See, these epochs are the steps, number of steps it takes. Okay. So you can see that very high learning rate means it will be gradually increasing. Orange color. Blue color indicates the low learning rate. And green color indicates the high learning rate. So what is the good learning rate? Red color. Starting from the loss, for each step, it will be keep on coming to convergence till it reaches the optimized value. So this is how a good learning rate you have to choose such that your epochs versus losses should have a proper convergence, or otherwise either you will end up in a solution of a low learning rate or a high learning rate or a very high learning rate. So you will not come to a conclusion of your research problem where to stop your training. Okay, so everything depends upon the a proper way of choosing the learning rate. Okay. So next is how to monitor the accuracy of the training data. So how you are going to monitor the accuracy. So you know the number of steps you are taking for your iterations. Okay. That versus accuracy means if it is red color type of wave, if you are getting, your training accuracy is good. Okay. Green color means it little overfitting. And if it is going to follow the blue color waveform, then it is strong overfitting. So where you have to stick upon the training accuracy with respect to the red color curve. Okay, you should not end up with a blue color curve or a green color curve for plotting or to monitoring the accuracy of your training algorithm, right? So what is this overfitting means? So actually your data will be containing an information about the regularities, mapping from input to output. So if you map the training data with respect to input to that of output, it may contain a noise. So if the noise is being added, what happens? Your target value becomes unreliable. If it is unreliable, you will end up with a sampling error. So how your aim is to fit to the model so that it should not tell the which irregularities or regularities are real caused by this sampling error. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to properly choose the training data information about the regularities with respect from input to output. Okay. If there is a sampling error, then you will end up with the overfitting. Then how to prevent this overfitting? So you can prevent this overfitting by using a model that has got the right capacity. So you should have true regularities and it should not enough to also model the spurious irregularities. Okay. So the standard way to limit the capacity of neural network is you have to limit the number of hidden units. So this is the place you need to concentrate. So once if you're choosing a convolutional neural network, you cannot keep on adding the hidden layers over there. Okay. You should limit the number of hidden units. You should limit the norms of the weights. Then you should stop the learning before it is taking the time to overfit. It should not come to underfitting or overfitting. It has to give you the proper accuracy. Okay. So this is how we are going to prevent your overfitting, right? So next is how to use a proper validation data set. So whatever the data set, either in the form of a text, speech, or an image available, the total data set we have to classify into three types. One is training the data with the proper learning parameter. Next is validating the data. Once the validation is done, then you can go for testing the data. So you can redivide these types of data set to get another unbiased estimate of the true error rate. Okay. So you have to use a proper validation data set. Without a proper data set, you cannot start your research or narrow downing your problem towards a to find a solution actually. Okay. So next is how to prevent overfitting by early stopping. Okay. So if you have got a lot of data and you have got a big model, it is very expensive to retrain the data if you have a different type of base. Okay. So it is much cheaper to start the learning with the smaller weights. Okay. Once if the smaller weights, if you train the algorithm and if the validation set satisfies the performance of your expected level, then you can gradually increase the weights level, so that your capacity of the model gives you 100% efficiency, right? Okay. So we have seen the basics of machine learning algorithms and what are the role of optimizers that are going to train the machine learning algorithms, and what are the problems you will be undergoing once if you choose the training algorithm, how to choose the weight, how to choose the learning parameter, what happens if overfitting comes, what happens if underfitting comes, how to gradually choose the learning rate as well as the weights to satisfy your machine learning algorithm efficiency. All these things we have seen. So we'll go into deep learning based image segmentation models. Why I have chosen the image segmentation model is for your telemedicine, wherever the patient is located and wherever the doctors may be available, you may be feeding the X-ray scan information such that in the form of image. Okay, those images has to be undergoing this deep learning method so that the doctor can available in the remote location can able to identify the problem properly so that it can give you the proper prescription. Okay, so the deep learning based image segmentation models, if you see, we have fully connected model and CNN with graphical model. CNN with graphical model means input you'll be giving to DCNN, then you will be having a aeroplane score map that will undergo bilinear interpolation, then fully connected so that you will get the output like this. Okay, this is second type of DL based image segmentation models. Third one is encoder based model or encoder decoder based model. So deconvolutional semantic segmentation, you can see here, you're giving an image, it takes 224 by 224, 112 by 112, like that. For convolution, it undergoes the max pooling process till it reaches its stride of 1 by 1. Then for deconvolution, again it will unpool so that it will get your original image. Okay. Similarly, for general image segmentation, they use segnet model. Okay. Input in the form of RGB you are giving, it will undergo the convolutional encoder decoder process. Pooling indices also will be coming into picture. You can see the color coding. Blue indicates convolution plus batch normalization plus ReLU activation. Pooling is green in color and upsampling is red in color and softmax is in yellow in color. So that you could able to obtain the segmented output at the decoder side. Okay, so this is the segnet model. Next, if you see the encoder decoder models meant for medical and biomedical image segmentation. So for this, they are using UNet and VNet. So UNet, if you see, they are taking the input image, gradually they are reducing the pixel level. Okay, so the blue color is the convolutional level and the gray indicates the copy and crop, and brown color indicates the max pooling, green indicates the up pooling, so that you will be getting your output as a segmented map over here. So this forms the U-shaped model. So these levels are reducing the pixel level of your image, will undergo various convolution, max pooling, up convolution, so that you will obtain an output segmentation. Similarly, if you see for VNet, VNet model is meant for 3D image segmentation. Say for example, if your medical image is of a 3D type, okay, it will be given to the input to 16 channel. It will have a down convolution. That will be multiplied to 32 channels, 64 channel, 128, then 256 channel. Then it will be up convoluted. Here down convolution will take place. After reaching the 256 by 256, it will take an up convolution. At last, it will go to the softmax position. So as I said in convolutional neural network, whatever may be the pooling process it takes, at last it has to do the softmaxing, so that you'll get the precision and accuracy of the image, so that the doctors can be able to look into the precise problem for the particular patient, so that he can give you the proper medicines. Okay, so this UNet and VNet are the medical and biomedical image segmentation models that was found out by the researchers. Next one is the multi-scale pyramid network. If you see this pyramid network, we all know input image, CNN, feature mapping, pooling it goes. The spooling will be having a pyramid pattern, means we will be having a convolution, we'll have upsample, you can concatenate that, then convolution, then you will get a final prediction. Next one is RCNN. Okay, RCNN. So RCNN is regional convolutional neural network. Okay, as the name indicates, regional, we can take the region of interest of a particular image. That region of interest alone can undergo the feature mapping convoluted, so that we'll be obtaining a convoluted output. Okay, this is about RCNN based image based segmentation model. Next is RCNN based model is mask lab model. So what they are doing here in mask lab model is they are taking the image, they are detecting it, they are segmenting, then they are predicting the direction, giving it to the various num classes, so that a particular mask alone, region of interest alone will undergo the concatenation to obtain the expected image segmented path. Okay. Next is dilated convolution model. Here we have 1 dilated, 2 dilated, and 3 dilated. Okay. So in dilated convolution model also, you can see here, this is DeepLab V3 plus mode. They are taking the image, they are encoding it, decoding it to obtain the predicted output. But encoder will undergo a DCNN, then various levels of convolutional and softmaxing. Then they will sample it along for the decoding process. They will compare it or concatenate it to obtain the predicted output. Okay. So next is RNN model, recurrent neural network. In recurrent neural network, it's meant for a natural language. Okay, or either a language or an input image. If you take a language, it will choose the LSTM network. If you choose an image, it will undergo CNN. Okay. Again, everything will be encoded. It will undergo FCNN, upsample, downsample. Then you'll be getting your segmented output. Okay, which part of the image you need to segment it. Okay, this is about recurrent neural networks. Okay, so we have seen various deep learning based image segmentation models available. Next model is attention based. Okay, here the action what a particular person is doing. Okay, that is with image scale of 0.5 and 1 they are taking, they are giving it to DCNN, particular attention with respect to the action what he is doing, that is being given with the score mapping, so that you will obtain the result. Okay. Similar case, generative models and adversarial training means you have to segment the image first, then you have to give it to the adversarial network to predict whether the received pixel is having a 0 pixel or 1 pixel. 0 means dark, 1 means colored. Okay. So this is how a GAN model is being used for training. So what is the timeline representation of our CNN model? So if you see the timeline, LeNet in 1998 they found, then AlexNet, ZFNet, VGG, Visual Geometric Group plays a major role for the Google Net. Okay, during 2014, then ResNet. ResNet is residual network. Then they gradually went up to GhostNet for classical CNN structures. Why I'm saying this is, I'm going to take the case study of 2 to 3 case studies with respect to telemedicine. We will be seeing it. So what could be the traditional detection approaches? Starting from 2012 to 2020, they have taken one stage approach and two stage approach. Okay. So this one stage and two stage approach, I think I'll say it in detail in the next slide. So coming to this telemedicine support to deep learning or deep learning support to telemedicine. So far all these days you might have learned about telemedicine. So I didn't touch upon the detail of telemedicines, but I'm taking what are the parameter with respect to deep learning. The data set can be fed into the storage network so that the either the guardian or the patient or the doctors can able to give you the solution. So the parameter can be of a body temperature, a breathing parameter, blood pressure, pulse, O2 and ECG that is being given to the remote global mobile communication system that is being connected globally, so that wherever the physiological data is available in the library, the guardian or the doctor can able to access the content and give you the solution. So this is the block diagram with respect to the wireless remote physiological parameter transmission system. Okay, so this is a schematic of wireless telemedicine network. So the human body is present over here. This person's medical image information data or personal health data is being given to the host computer that has a central database where anyone can access. So these are the repeater hub or LAN or data process network, whatever it is. So everything will be connected to the telemedicine where through the satellite or mobile communication network, either your data can be accessed by the medical institution globally or the guardianship center or the remote monitoring equipment or any other telemedicine network connected to our network or a home network or whatever it is, other any other hospital or medical imaging, archiving and communication system. So this telemedicine can have the support to through the SATCOM or mobile communication network to the remote person or any other telemedicine doctor's availability through the gateway or any other hospital available or medical image archiving. Okay. So whatever the data you are feeding to the host computer, you can, the person available in the remote place can able to access this so that you will be getting a solution. Okay. But how those persons are accessing through the deep learning technique, that is what we have seen. Okay. So the image, whatever the patient is feeding to the database can be of a semantic segmentation or image instant segmentation or a panoptic segmentation. Okay. So these are the years gradually it started growing. So I can see that I've given the color coding here. Starting from 2014 to 20, orange color indicates the semantic segmentation method of image. Green color indicates the instant segmentation and yellow color indicates the panoptic. Okay. So for our telemedicine or deep learning in telemedicine, we will be making use of a deep masking technique or mask RCNN. Okay. So this instant segmentation algorithms are being used for image segmentation models by the telemedicine users. Okay. So we'll see it in detail now. How? First approach, what I'm taking now is a predictive text system. Okay. They have used this deep learning approach for an Arabic context. They have taken an Arabic language from the database of AltiB database. Okay. That database contains the information of the data about the medical recommendations of gynecology, dermatology, psychiatric diseases, urology, and internist diseases. Okay. So various deep learning models are being implemented or optimized for the next word prediction, either in the single direction or in the bi-direction with the support of LSTM deep learning techniques or bi-directional LSTM or convolutional one dimension or the fusion of your long short-term memory and convolutional. Okay. So they have trained these two versions of the data set using a 3 gram and 4 gram representation. How they have trained this text system, predicting the next coming text for the Arabic language, they have done a research recently in 2021. I've taken this from the IEEE Access. In June 2021, they have given this support of telemedicines in Arabic context for a deep learning approach. So they are retrieving the data from the database, okay, which that consists the data of gynecology, dermatology, psychology, urology, and internist. They are giving it to the representation of data with respect to 3 gram or 4 grams. Then they are constructing the embeddings with the support of Keras or Arabic. Then they are building the deep learning models. Whatever the data they have received, they are building the deep learning model here. Based on the deep learning model available, they could be able to perform the evaluation, okay, for the training accuracy, validation loss, training loss, okay. So how they have done, see, they are taking the data, they are cleaning the data, means they are segregating the data, and they are giving the token for each type of database, okay. So they have given the treatment like color coding, that if it is green color, it is a 3 gram, and if it is blue color, it is 4 gram representation, quad gram representation. So this is with respect to the Arabic context. So they have given the content of information in the Arabic by the message. He continues the treatment for a week and follows up with the attending physician. And it is necessary to stop smoking if he smokes. This is the content given in the Arabic, so that upon undergoing various level of tokenization, they could able to predict the next letter of Arabic with the support of deep learning. How? See, they are taking the different medical parameters, they are giving it to the datagram representation, they are passing it through the Keras embedding or Arabic embedding, they are building the deep learning models, and they are evaluating the performance, okay. So this is one of the deep learning CNN model here. They have used convolutional one dimension, okay. It's a convolutional technique only. So how they have done this, see, LSTM network will look like this. They are giving the input to the long short-term memory along with the convoluted function of h of t minus 1. Then it undergoes the softmax to obtain you the output, okay. This is how a simple LSTM network will look like, okay. But how an LSTM cell will look like? An LSTM cell will look like input you are giving, convoluted function along with the training. It will undergo with the support of activation function of a blue color indicates tan H and white indicates the sigmoid. It will undergo the convoluted operation to obtain your required output. This is how an LSTM cell will look like. So how this by LSTM will look like? It will be having two LSTM network connected for the forward layer. Then both the layer will undergo the, you can see both of the layer will undergo the softmax operation to give you the output, okay. So this is how a deep learning convolutional neural network model supports the Arabic context language, okay, to get the next predictable word for the telemedicine purpose. So they have taken the learning rate to be 0.001. Optimizer, as I said earlier, Adam, they have taken loss function sparse, batch size 128, filter is 3 or 4, stride size 1, activation function ReLU they have taken, regulator and dropout. So upon using this, they have found out here after embedding, it is undergoing the deep learning model, so that they have compared with the Arabic context with 4 techniques, and they have come to a conclusion that convolutional one dimensional helps them to reach the convergence faster for the implemented context of your Arabic language. Okay, this is one of the case study. The second case study, what I'm considering here for you to explain the telemedicine technique is about the smart dental health. Okay, they are taking the sample image, standard procedure we know, enhancement, color texture matching, classification or localization, the localization of the place where exactly the disease is. Then it will undergo the artificial secondary filtration, and it will build the database. That database will be fed to the mask RCNN model training, then to the identification model. Then what are the images to be tested will be fed by the patient. With the available database, it will compare and come to an identification result. So this is how they have found out for dentist problem. They have taken the decayed tooth. They have underwent all the procedure what we have discussed for mask RCNN. At last, they have found out that location that the dentist has located that this is the place where actually the plague is present. Okay, so how this mask RCNN functions? I have explained in previous slide, but again I'm saying here, they are taking the region of interest where actually the affected tooth is. It will undergo the ResNet of 5 layers. Okay, after taking that average, it will be given into the class or inbox. The masked image also will be fed as input to this, so that with the help of the support of REST network, we could be able to identify where actually the plague is present in the tooth. Okay, so this is how a dentist will identify with the support of deep learning model. Once the patient feeds the data of images to be tested, whatever the data available in the database will be compared with the help of a deep learning model, so that the dentist can easily identify the location where exactly the tooth decay is present. Okay. Next type of case study is how to detect the cough and gesture. Okay. They're taking a Doppler sensor with the oscilloscope, they're feeding it to the computer, they are putting this convolutional neural network, they are finding the cough probability. So in detail, this is come in Jan 2021 actually. So this is the computer with oscilloscope. They are taking the microwave radar sensor. Oscilloscope is present over there with the signal trigger and power supply. They are taking different methods, and they are proving that with the help of CNN AlexNet for 1 meter distance and 3 meter distance, they could able to test the accuracy of up to 86.5% with the support of our CNN AlexNet network. Okay, so this is how a cough is being detected with the help of the radar. Okay, so next one is how to classify the respiratory sound. Okay, how to classify the respiratory sound. So here they are taking the wheezing, crackle, and normal. Okay, so they are feeding the segmented respiratory sound. So earlier I have told you with respect to image. Now I am saying that, sorry, I have over zoomed it. Yes. So next they are taking the audio. I have shown you one example for text, one example for image, next example is for sound. They are taking the sound, they are passing it to the optimized S transform, they are obtaining the S transform coefficients, they are rescaling it, they are obtaining the feature, then they are trying to find out whether that type of sound is for wheezing or for crackle or for a normal sound, with the support of residual network, with the support of deep residual network. Okay, so this is another paper they have done this analysis during 2019. Okay, so next one is, I'm just going to conclude. Slide is not moving. Okay, next, how how your residual network for respiratory sound is being classified. Okay, for 50 layers, they are taking the input image, giving it to the convolutional batch normalization. It undergoes the activation function of ReLU, then maximum pooling. Like that, they are continuing it for 50 layers to get your get clarity in the sound of either it is the sound is wheezing one or a crackle one or a normal sound. Okay, so this is how they are making use of a ResNet, right? So sorry, there is a problem in zooming. So So far, with respect to telemedicine, I have shown you, I have taken 3 different case studies, how a telemedicine makes use of the deep learning techniques with respect to a context of a text, how the next letter or a word is being predicted with the support of deep learning. Then I have taken an image of a smart dental health checkup. Then I have taken one respiratory sound so that we could able to see where exactly your deep learning techniques for telemedicine was helpful. So to conclude this session, exactly it is 11. So to conclude this session, I would like to give you some take home points of stating that further studies has to be incorporated for clinical knowledge into a data driven model. Okay, instead of a clinical knowledge, they have to go for a data driven model. So we need to have more studies on the application of recent advances in unsupervised and reinforcement supervised with respect to medical image analysis. So far RCNN, everything comes under the supervised model, but still more years are to go so that we'll be having more studies with this subjected to unsupervised and reinforcement learning. And instead of a 2-dimensional, you can go for higher dimensions of 3D and 4D image analysis. And however, the greatest market impact in the short term will be from cognitive workflow solutions than enhanced radiologist productivity. So we will be depending, once these models are coming into existence through the telemedicine, we will be depending upon radiologists rather than doctors. Okay. So the diagnostics can be given properly by the radiologist because they are the person, those who are going to scan the image, scan the body and obtain the image. So that image can be fed into the deep learning network so that the radiologist can give us better solution rather than doctors. Okay. So what happens at last? Your artificial intelligence will augment, it will not replace physicians, but the radiologists become the physicians of physicians because in future market will demand more radiologists. Okay. The radiologist will become the physicians of physicians. So with this, I think I've done some justice towards deep learning in telemedicine. It's almost time up. So with this, I conclude. If you have any doubts, you can ask me.
Madam, can I ask you something?
Yes, sir, please.
It is very nice to listen to you from a optimizer to all the applications.
Okay.
And I have one question on the optimizers.
Yes,
Because
sir.
you have dealt in the beginning of your lecture about the Adam and other optimizers.
Okay.
So I just want to know how do you decide the hyperparameter tuning?
Yeah, it depends upon the application what you are working on, sir. So I've given you various classifications of machine learning algorithms available. Okay?
Right.
Advantage and disadvantage.
Right. No,
So,
because I'm been working on the Adam and we have beta 1, beta 2 as a hyperparameters, and they
okay.
are already by default given by the designer.
Okay.
So if I want to change those hyperparameters, is there any way to change them? That is first question. And
Actually,
yeah,
if you want to change, then again entire setup what you have done will get disturbed. Again, you have to wait for 1 or 2 days depending upon the learning rate what you have chosen.
no,
And
learning rate, I can set out learning rate. I can set out maybe a small learning rate I can start.
okay.
And I check out with the 2 hyperparameters because they are all exponentially decaying parameters, right?
Okay. Okay.
So is there any way by which we can change and tune the hyperparameter? That
It
is
is
what we
only
call
a
in.
trial and error method, sir. You have to change
Okay.
it, check it, and you have to
Okay.
learn from that. Once if you change, you'll get plenty of output.
Okay.
And be in a position to analyze the output what you are getting.
Okay.
Then that output itself becomes a very big research for you.
Yeah, that is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
What you're saying is correct. You can
Yeah.
check.
Yeah,
Whatever
in
the
fact, I'm
output-
working on that as my area. So that is one question I wanted to ask. So, a small second question is,
Yes, sir.
can we modify the algorithms which are available like optimizers? We have various algorithm like RMS prof, ADAP delta,
Those,
and so many.
yeah, those are the optimizers, sir. You cannot change them, but you can.
No,
tweak-
can we modify the algorithm? For example, now R-Adam has come, which is a modification of the Adam algorithm. Then we
Okay.
have two more modifications of the Adam algorithm, and they portray that they are having a better convergence rate
Okay.
and better what you call as a accuracy.
Yeah.
Empirically, it depends on the data set they are implementing upon. So some of the data set I found they're performing very good, but some of the data set they are not performing at all as compared to the original given.
Yeah. See, the problem with us is we need to have enough storage space. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Second one is if you work on these optimizers,
Yeah.
you can modify the optimizer. But the
Okay.
thing is, again, a constraint with us is the enough data set storage facility.
Yeah.
If you have got good cloud, you can try it and see so that it will produce big data. From that big data, you can apply any statistical tool so that you'll obtain very good solution so that you can conclude your research.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, madam.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So any other questions?
Any questions, participants? It looks like no questions, ma'am. You have explained all the concepts very clearly.
Okay.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am, for explaining all like machine learning, deep learning, all the different image segmentation topics, different case studies. That is very interesting part.
Yeah, I was thinking how to touch upon telemedicine. So I thought I'll take one text, audio and image so that everything will be complete. Is it not? So
Yes,
I, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Really very good talk. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma. Thank you so much.